Hello, and thank you for joining me once again as we rewatch the Wheel of Time Season 1. My name is James, and today we are going to start watching Episode 5, Blood Calls Blood. Yes, that's right, I still remember to record the names of the episodes this time. This episode is directed by Sally Richardson Whitfield, and if you remember from earlier video, I said that there was one specific director I was waiting to shout out here. This is her. If you are unfamiliar with who she is, she was actually on Eureka. She was one of the main cast members on Eureka. She was also in I Am Legend. She played Will Smith's wife in that movie in all the flashbacks. And yeah, so as we continue on here, we're going to start on a snowy forest. And we come to a group of people who are burying other people. Find out that this is a group of Aes Sedai and all the warders that were left after the attack from Logain's army trying to rescue Logain. Sisters are being buried, warders are being buried. It's, kind of a heartbreaking scene. And we see the things that are going on there. We focus in on one Aes Sedai being laid to rest. This is Kyrene, who died in the previous episode, was killed by Logain. And she was killed before Nynaeve did her Super Saiyan healing magic on everybody. Stepan is laying her to rest and takes her ring. We see Lan step up to him and put a hand on his shoulder and comfort. As the shot moves out, we just see that there's a ton of bodies laid in a circular pattern, like in a wheel and spoke shaped pattern. And of course, then we move to the opening credits and it switches to 1 month later, and we just see like a whole bunch of people walking down a road, all heading in the same direction, and Rand and Matt are there. We see some children kind of approach Matt, and Matt turns around and yells at them, and then immediately starts saying he's sorry. So it's a much different Matt than what we knew previously. And as they continue on walking, it kind of pans around, and Rand sees a mountain, and he kind of looks at the mountain and turns around and says, "Look, that mountain, I think I've seen that mountain before." And Matt just looks at him like he's crazy, because yeah, he kind of is. And somebody mentions that they're near Tar Valon, or Tar Valon. So Rand and Matt, they see Tar Valon, and they keep heading towards the city. And at this point, I'm going to take a break, because this is something I've really been looking forward to telling people. So we get some beautiful shots of the White Tower, which is this huge tower. It's the seat of Aes Sedai power in the middle of Tar Valon. And Tar Valon is a city that's on an island in the middle of a river. And the reason why I want to point this out is because this building has a certain shape to it. A very, very identifiable shape. The tower itself is the seat of power for the most powerful organization of women in the entire world. And it's sitting on an island in the middle of the river. This is the shape of the island. And this is the tower. Now, I love this. I don't know if this was intentional or not, and I don't know which would be funnier, if it was just a happy accident, or if the design crew for the show actually designed it to be this way. Either way, it's fantastic. 100% love it. No notes. Let's continue on. So Rand and Matt continue on, and they enter the city. This is the first time Rand kind of looks around and sees everything, and he says, "Oh, blood and ashes," which is something that's said very commonly in the books. This is like one of the curses in the books, like curse words and stuff like that. So I think this is the first time that we hear it in the show. At least it's the first time that I remember hearing it. But they're looking around, they're trying to figure out what to do. And Rand mentions that there's a specific inn that they need to go to because the innkeeper was a friend of Tom's. And Matt is very much like, just, I'm coming along just because. So, and then it switches to them, and you find out that Matt is very kind of down because he thinks that he killed that family, and he's reassured by Rand that no, he didn't kill the family. There was a Myrddraal there, and the Myrddraal's the one that killed the family, not him. So shortly after that little bit about with Rand cursing, you hear a distinctive whistle, a good audio cue, one that I mentioned back in episode 2. Only this time, you actually see Padan Fain walking around in the background. After that reassurance, we switch to Lan, Nynaeve, and Moiraine, who have also made it to Tar Valon. And they're inside the tower, and they're in the warder's quarters, or the warder section of the tower, which Aes Sedai really don't go into too much. Moiraine is leaving Nynaeve there in the warder section because she doesn't know what's going on in the tower. She knows that Nynaeve is an extremely powerful user of the One Power, and she doesn't want Nynaeve to be caught up in Aes Sedai politics. For her part, Nynaeve doesn't really care about any of that. She doesn't understand how Moiraine is trying to protect her, and she's just kind of fed up with all Aes Sedai at this point. She's like, you know what? I just want my people. Where are they? Moiraine reassures her that, she has people looking out for everybody, and that she'll know once they enter the city. Moiraine does try to comfort Nynaeve a little bit, and tries to explain, you're feeling a lot of things, and it's okay. I understand what you're feeling because I felt them all too when I first touched the source. Again, Nynaeve doesn't really respond to that very well. And then we transition from here to Perrin and Egwene, and they're still with the Tinkers, and we find out that they are also near the White Tower. As Perrin and Egwene are thinking that, their journey to the White Tower is almost at an end, the White Cloaks show up. And not just any White Cloaks, Eamon Vald is there. And as he's questioning the Tinkers, he's looking around and he sees Perrin and Egwene, and demands that they be brought over. Rayan and Isla, for their part, and all the other Tinkers are like, no, you can't have them. They shared our food, they shared our fire, they shared our wagons. Even Valda she's like, no, you're going to give them to me now, and starts attacking them. And as that's going on, Aram pulls Perrin and Egwene off to the side, tells them, okay, we need to escape now. But then they get hunted down by White Cloaks on horses. Aram gets knocked out, Perrin and Egwene get captured. From here, we switch back to Tar Valon, to the inn, and Rand is in the library of this inn. And while he's in there, somebody starts speaking, and he looks over and he sees this big, tall, very deep-voiced person kind of standing there. And he starts freaking out because this guy, he has this weird broad nose, he's got funky hair and all kinds of stuff, and Rand gets really scared and he's like, nope, calm down, my name is Loyal. I'm an Ogier. And this is when we meet Loyal. Loyal is fantastic, one of my favorite characters in the books. But he looks at Rand and he sees Rand and he's like, what is an Aielman doing in Tar Valon? And Rand's like, I'm not Aiel. I'm from the Two Rivers, and I'm not Aiel. And he's like, what is an Aielman from the Two Rivers doing in Tar Valon? And Rand's just like, again, I'm not Aiel. Loyal mentions that, one of the few ways that you can tell where somebody's from is by their hair. Aiel have distinctively red hair, which, of course, Rand has. So they have a little discussion about that, and Rand starts telling him about Egwene. They get interrupted by the sounds of something going on outside, and Rand goes to check it out. Logain is about to be paraded through the streets of Tar Valon. So he kind of makes excuses to leave. Loyal's like, I'm going to go watch it. And he's like, I'll find you out there. And then he runs away. He joins Matt, and Matt's already outside. He's on a balcony, and Rand shows up. Is like, hey, thanks for saving me a spot. Rand and Matt are on the balcony, and Logain is being paraded by. There is this sequence where Logain looks up and he sees Rand and Matt on the balcony and just starts this weird cackle of a laugh. And as it's happening, Matt is leaning more forward. And eventually Rand puts his hand on the shoulder and is like, Matt, stop. Matt kind of pulls back and flinches like he was in a trance, and does a little flinch, regaining his senses and stuff. And you look down at Logain, and Logain is still just sitting in the same kind of mopey area that he was a little bit earlier. There was no wild cackle or anything like that, no indication that he had even moved. So All of this appeared to have been in Matt's head. And shortly after that, Matt makes Rand promise that, if they're the one, if they can channel or anything like that, that they need to make sure that nothing bad happens, that they would take care of each other. And by take care of, I mean in their misery and suffering. And of course, Rand, he's looking at Matt and he's like, you know what, I'll agree. Yeah. After the parade, we go back to the White Tower, and in this scene we see Steppen getting dressed in all white as if he's preparing for some kind of ritual. Lan is dressed in all black, and they have a discussion about the White Tower, or about Aes Sedai, and what it's like to lose their Aes Sedai, what happens when that bond breaks. And they step out, and they walk through the tower. They go to a balcony in which there's a stone sculpture, for lack of a better term in my head right now for this, in which we see like molten metal around, and Steppen is there with the ring, with Corinne's ring, and he puts it in the molten metal so that the ring will melt down. That kind of like returning the Aes Sedai back home. After the little ritual with Steppen, Lan returns to Moraine. Nothing is said. They just kind of sit together in silence. Sometimes you don't need to say anything. Sometimes you just need someone there. Transitioning away from that somber moment with Lan and Moraine, we go to the White Cloak camp, and we're inside a tent. And one of the most disturbing sequences in the first season, Egwene is being scrubbed down, ritually cleansed, and then she's dressed in all white, and she's tied to a chair, and Eamon Valda comes in and starts talking to her. While the questioning is happening, with some other White Cloaks bring in Perrin, and he's tied to a stockade. He's struggling to escape, but he can't. Egwene is struggling to escape, but she can't. And the whole time, Eamon Valda is talking about, his particular mission within the White Cloaks. From their point of view, they know that men destroy the world. They think that because the Dark One touched the male half of the One Power, that all of the One Power is evil and wrong to use. And Eamon Valda made it his mission in life to hunt down and kill as many Aes Sedai as he possibly could. He has a ton of Aes Sedai rings laying around, and he's very proud of those rings. But he thinks that Egwene can channel. He kind of says, okay, either you can channel or you can't. But here's what we're going to do. It's like, if you can channel, I'll kill you and he lives, Perrin. And if you can't channel, well, I'll be killing Perrin and you'll live. And then he proceeds to take a knife and start slicing Perrin's back. We get a look at Perrin's face, and we see his eyes start turning kind of yellow or golden. And we hear some distant howls of wolves. We're back in the tower with Steppen knocking on Nynaeve's door. And he's talking with Nynaeve, and Nynaeve knows that he's in pain. He asks for something to help him sleep. And of course, she feels a lot of empathy for him. She has a lot of sympathy for him. And she gives him something to help him sleep. After Steppen leaves, Nynaeve leaves her room and she walks down a hall and she meets Liandrin. And Liandrin talks to her a little bit and talks to her about what it means to be in the Red Ajah, about how they don't really like men because men destroyed the world. They don't have warders. That's how much they don't like men, just in general. And Liandrin kind of makes reference to the fact that she knows men are cruel, and she implies that certain men were really cruel to her in her past. Also in this scene, she points out to Nynaeve that, right through those doors over there, there's a garden that's kind of lovely. The next scene, we transition back to Rand and Matt, and Loyal enters the room and says, Rand, wonderful news. Did you know that, Ogier have the ability to access the White Tower anytime you want? And they have lovely gardens. And in the gardens, I found one of the girls you told me about, and Nynaeve enters the room. There's been a lovely reunion between Rand and Nynaeve. Right after they say their hellos and give each other a hug, Nynaeve looks over at Matt, sees him on the bed, immediately knows that something is wrong and goes over to start to check him out. Like, you know, she's the wisdom of their village. This is what she does. But as soon as she approaches, Matt lashes out at her and freaks her out. And Matt immediately comes to his senses and starts apologizing. I'm sorry, Nynaeve. I didn't mean it. After that, they kind of step aside and Rand discusses with Nynaeve about Matt possibly being able to channel. They agree not to tell anybody because they're in the city full of Aes Sedai, and she starts telling Rand about the first time that she healed Egwene, because obviously Rand is very worried about Egwene. She knew Egwene was so strong that her will is unbreakable. So after that scene on the balcony, we go back to Perrin and Egwene in the tent with Aemon and Valda. Now Valda's not there, it's just Perrin and Egwene, and they're alone. And Perrin tells Egwene that it should be him. Don't channel, don't do anything. It should be him. He deserves it because he killed Layla, his wife. And Egwene says, "No, it wasn't your fault. It was the Trollocs." And Perrin's like, "No, I was killing a Trolloc. Another one came behind me. I swung my axe around. When I looked, it was her, not a Trolloc." About that time, Valda comes back in and asks if they've decided who it's going to be yet. And of course they haven't. And Egwene, sees what kind of pain Perrin is in. She knows that nothing good is going to happen. At least she starts to channel, and we see the weaves form around her. Her hand starts to spark a little bit. She gets a little fireball, and she throws it at Valda. And it really was a tiny little fireball. And it just kind of hits Valda and just kind of fizzles out. And he's like, "Please, woman, do you not think that I would have dealt with your kind before?" But what he didn't know was that while she was tossing that little fireball at Valda, she was burning Perrin's ropes as well. So Perrin breaks free. He's in a rage. His eyes are golden again. Valda had grabbed a knife and started approaching Egwene to kill her when Perrin broke free. He turns around, he sees Perrin and sees the eyes, and he's like, "What are you?" And at that time, she breaks free, she grabs a knife, and she attacks Valda and stabs him in the back. At the same time that we see Perrin's eyes, we start hearing wolves howling and stuff like that. Egwene grabs the rings, they run out of the tent. The White Cloak camp is in chaos, and wolves are running around everywhere attacking everybody. And Egwene and Perrin start running away, and they get stopped by a White Cloak. The White Cloak gets knocked down by a wolf. There's another wolf in front of them, just looking at them, and Egwene is freaking out, and Perrin's just holding on to her. He's like, no, it's okay. He's not going to attack us. And then they run off and they escape. After which, we go back to the tower, and Liandrin is approaching Moiraine, asking about Nynaeve. Like, where are you hiding Nynaeve? Where is Nynaeve? And she kind of tells Moiraine that she's going to be trying to recruit Nynaeve to be Red Ajah. Moiraine just looks at her and is like, really? The first time she used the one power, she healed us all. You think she's going to choose Red? She's also points out that Nynaeve doesn't share their Red's hatred of men either. So she's like, no, she's not going to be Red. From here, we pick up with Lan, and he's looking for Steppen and finds him in front of this little altar, and he's performing a ritual to ward off the Forsaken. And you find out a little bit about the Forsaken here, where the Forsaken were the most powerful channelers of their day, who joined the side of the Dark One in order to gain immortality. Yeah, that's basically it. Then we go to Moiraine, who is in her room now with Alanna. And Alanna, they're just chilling out on the bed. They're having a discussion. I will point out that she has boots and Alanna doesn't. So what does that say about people? Do you ever put your shoes up on the bed? I don't. But anyways, they're talking about things that are going on. Alanna mentions that the Amyrlin is out of town. She's, at a state visit to Caemlyn, but she's on the way back. And when she gets back, she's going to see everybody to discuss the events that happened around Logain and the attack and the death of Corene. And Alanna does talk a little bit about the tower politics, things going on inside the tower, and you find out that the Red Ajah is gaining influence, specifically Liandrin is. After their discussion and after Alanna leaves, you see Moiraine goes over to a little art piece that's hanging up on the wall, very beautifully designed, but in the middle of it, she opens up a little door and just kind of leaves it open. We go back to Lan, and him and Stepan are, they're in Stepan's room, they're drinking, and they're talking about his grief over Karene's death. But even in the middle of his grief, he looks at Lan and says, I see the way that she looks at you. I see the way that you look at her. He's like, trust me, man. From somebody that's in love and just lost love, don't do love, man. Lan kind of, denies it, says, I don't have time for that, basically. Doesn't matter. But they continue drinking, and then we find out the next morning, Lan wakes up. And he sees on the counter, he finds the packet that Nynaeve gave Stepan to help him sleep, and realizes that Stepan drugged his drink. He looks over at a wall and he sees there's an art piece with a bunch of daggers in it, and one of the daggers is missing. And he knows why Stepan put him to sleep. And he immediately runs out and goes looking for Stepan. And in front of the altar where Stepan was warding off the Forsaken, Lan finds him. And he took his own life. Not exactly the easiest thing to see for somebody that's had a similar experience, and I really hope that no one else really has that type of experience. It's something that stays with you, but not in a good way. With that, we move on to the final scene, and the final scene is Stepan's funeral. Everyone in the room is dressed in white. It's all the warders. There's a few Aes Sedai there. Moiraine and Nynaeve are there. Lan is called to the front and is charged with mourning for everyone. And as the scene progresses, people in the room start rhythmically thumping their chest. And it seems like they're doing it harder and harder and harder. And it starts with just one and just continues on. More and more people join in. We see Lan is devastated, and he lets out this guttural scream of pain for his lost friend. We see Moiraine, who through the warder bond, she feels what Lan is feeling, and she's crying. And Nynaeve is looking on at everything that's happening, and we know that she feels empathy and sympathy for Lan and Moiraine and everyone. And she's obviously struggling and having a rough time with it as well. That's how this episode ends. So all in all, I really enjoyed this episode. The ending did get to me, but that's just good storytelling. So if you enjoyed this recap, go ahead and leave a like, and go ahead and subscribe, and stay tuned for the next video where we go over episode 6. And in the meantime, have a good day. Back in the tower. Oh, where's my hat? I can't do anything without my hat.